Right. If you want any operation to be scheduled, right now, when I click on the button, action is getting performed. When I click on the link, action is getting performed. I don't want the action to be performed when you click on the button. I want the action to be performed recursively. I want the action to be performed on every Saturday. I want the action to be performed on every second Sunday. I want the action to be performed on last working day of the month. So when you want action to be performed recursively at a given time, then we go for ScheduleApex. If you want any action to be performed at a given time, then we go for ScheduleApex. Generally, what was the procedure? When you click on the button, action will be performed. When you click on the link, action will be performed. When you load the page, action will be performed. But I want the action to be performed action to be performed at a given time figure, at a particular time on last day, second Friday, every day evening 5 o'clock. So how do you do that? So if you want any operation to be scheduled, we are supposed to implement an interface called schedulable interface. What is the interface we have to implement? Schedulable. If you want any Apex class to be scheduled, if you want any operation to be scheduled, then the class has to implement an interface called schedulable interface. Class implementing. Class implements schedulable. Class implements schedulable. If a class is implementing a schedulable interface, then you are supposed to go for execute method. If a class implements a schedulable, then we have to go for execute method. Any class that is implementing schedulable interface has to go for execute method. So how you define the execute method? Public void. You define the logic what you want to execute. Now I am writing some logic here. So what was that? If you want any operation to be scheduled, if you want any operation to be scheduled, that has to be defined within the execute method of the class. Why are you defining execute method? Any class that implements schedulable interface has to define execute method. What will be there in the execute method? The logic which you want to run is defined in the execute method. I hope you are clear with this. People have followed. If any operation to be scheduled, the class has to implement a schedulable interface. If a class is implementing a schedulable interface, it will be defining a execute method. What will be defined in the execute method? The logic what you want to implement is defined within the execute method. If a class implements schedulable, it has to define execute method. In the execute method, we are going to define the logic which you want to execute. I hope you are good. People are good. Now write one Apex class. Write an Apex class. Write a ScheduleApex class which will fetch all the opportunities and update stage name as close what. Write a ScheduleApex class. Write a ScheduleApex class which will fetch. Write a ScheduleApex class which will fetch all the opportunities. And update their stage name as closed one. Update their stage name as closed one. Write a schedule apex which will fetch all the opportunities and update their stage name as closed one. So how did you define it? Class implements schedulable. Schedulable context. Then fetch all the list of opportunities. Opportunity. Fetch all the opportunities. Convert them into closed one. Fetch all the opportunities. Right, boss? This is only a class. But how do you run this? ScheduleApex is also an asynchronous operation. But how do you schedule? I want this job to run at a particular time. How do you define that time? When you want this job to run at a particular time, how do you run this job? Look at this. First define time. How you define a time? Time will be defined as seconds, minute, hours, day in week, day in month, month, day in week. This is how we are supposed to define time. At what time you want the job to run, that you have to define using this time. Second, minute, hours, day in the month, month, day in the week, year. Using this structure you are supposed to define. When you are defining this structure, we have some special symbols. Star means every, question mark, not sure. Range. Fifth, 10th, 23rd. W, working day. L, last working day. Hash, N hash, two hash 6, second Friday. One is Sunday, 7 is Saturday. Two hash 6, second Friday. One hash 7, first Saturday. First Saturday. Next we had we can define it. 7 8 give. Now using this we have to form. At what time you want the job to run, you have to form it. I told. On 15th of March. Now you define 0 seconds, 0 minutes, 5 hours, 15th of March, 15th March 3. 15th of March will come every year on which day? Monday. Every year 15th of March will come on Monday only. I am not sure, right? We cannot guarantee that every year 15th of March will come on which day. When you cannot guarantee, it, question mark. Year is always optional. Year is always optional.
The value for Monday should be 2, isn't it?
Come again.
The value for Monday should not that be 2.
You cannot.
That's month.
You cannot guarantee that every year is not Monday, month of March. You cannot guarantee 15th of March of every year will come on Monday. Can we guarantee that every year 15th of March will come on Monday? No. That's why push mark. Month 3, day 15 March 15th, 5 a.m. March 15th, 5 a.m. Job on 10th, 15th, 20th of every at 5:30 p.m.
Don't we need to give year as also question mark?
Here is always optional.
Okay.
Every month. Every month 10th will come on which day? I cannot guarantee this.
Satish, how will it recognize that it's a PM, 5:30 p.m.?
Sorry, I was supposed to give 17 here.
Yeah. Okay.
Hello, Satish.
Yes,
I don't understand that hash.
I'll cover it. I'll cover an example. 1 first hash 7 Saturday. Which is Saturday? First Saturday. 2 second hash 6. 6 stands for Friday. So 2 hash 6 means second Friday. First indicate which 10. Every month Friday will come on which day? Are you sure? Friday will come on 10th only? No. Which month? November month. Which day in the week? Friday. Friday means 6. Job on last working day of every month at 8:30 p.m. Last working day LW of every month. Last working day of every month. Right. Next we'll see job on every second Friday of every month. It 6 here. So this is the time frame which is called cron expression. This is called time frame which is called cron expression. This is called second Friday hash 6. This is the cron expression. This will tell at what time the job has to run. Cron expression. This will tell at what time the job has to run. Cron expression. This will tell at what time the job has to run. Cron expression. This will tell at what time the job has to run. Okay. Now, how do you execute the job? Look at the next one. If you want to execute the job, create the object for the class. Okay. Create the object for the class. Define the expression at what time you want cron expression. Give 57 750 and what was that 10:03 10. This is how we have given. Then how do you schedule it? ID job ID equal to system dot schedule my job. System dot schedule my job. At what time you want cron expression? What you want? You're saying first system dot schedule name of the job. At what time you want to run the job? What is the job you want to run? Name of the job, at what time, and object of the job. Once it is executed. Now, this is a asynchronous job. If you want to know whether the job started or not, success or not, we can go and find out from async apex class. But when was it scheduled? when was this job is going to execute next, when was the job executed last time. If you want to know, we need to go for cron trigger. Look at the point. Scheduled jobs. Scheduled jobs. Here you can find. Job is scheduled. My time zone is different. User who scheduled the job, his time zone is different. So we had an issue here. The person who scheduled the job will be scheduled according to his time zone. Now the job was scheduled according to the previous time zone. Now if I schedule again, it will run according to new time zone. So what was this? Submitted at this time. Job is going to execute at 10:03, 8:21 p.m. because previously I was in Los Angeles time zone. So the job was scheduled as per that. So at what time the job will be scheduled? Job will be scheduled according to the user's time zone. Again I am giving go to this. You find job was scheduled at 10/3/2018, 7:52. Job is going to execute at 10/3/2019, 7:52. Are you getting? So any asynchronous jobs that are scheduled, that will be registered with async apex job object. But any job that is scheduled, they are registered with a cron trigger object. So I told any asynchronous job, first, the moment you call this, it will go and register with type method name. Success or failure, only that. Once it is registered, some ID we got here. Now, with respect to this ID, again what happened? One cron trigger will be created. There is one more object. What was that object called? This object ID cron expression. Cron expression. The job has to run at what expression? Last executed, next execution. It is going to say 001. Some expression we give. Some expression. So it says when was it last executed? Last executed, let us say 03 10. Okay. When was last going to execute? 04 10. This data will be there. What is the ID of the job? What is the time expression you have given? When was the job executed last? When is the job going to execute next? So the data will be where? In cron trigger. Whether job is success or failure, where we can find async apex job. Job is success or failure, we can find from async apex job. Whether job is success or failure, we can find it from async apex job. Whether job is success or failure, we can find it from async apex job. Whether job is success or failure, we can find it from async apex job. At what time the job is scheduled? At what time the job is scheduled? That we can find from cron trigger. At what time the job is scheduled? We can find from cron trigger. Right? Then at next executed, right? On this day, what happened? Job will be added to queue. Any asynchronous job, finally it is added to queue. From the queue, the job will run. Are you getting my point? So first, when you call asynchronous operation, it will go and register with async apex job. The job which is registered for this job, what is the cron expression? When was the job last executed? When was the job next going to execute? This data in cron trigger. So at the schedule time, the job is added to queue. When the job is added to the queue, I cannot guarantee the job will run exactly at the same time. Because if you want to run this job, the resource what you are looking may or may not be available readily. So if you schedule a job, doesn't mean exactly at the same time the job will run. It will try to run the job at the same time, provided if resources are available. Are you getting? So in the ScheduleApex, what is the extra topic we had? Cron trigger, which will maintain the details about the scheduled jobs. Any job which is scheduled, that will be in cron trigger object. Any job which is scheduled, that will be in cron trigger object. I hope you are good. Not only ScheduleApex, any scheduled jobs in Salesforce. Any job that is scheduled in the Salesforce will be registered with the cron trigger only. Any job which is scheduled in the Salesforce will be registered with the cron trigger only. Now, how do you execute the job now? If you want to execute the job, schedule, what is param 1? Name of the, what is param 2? Cron. At what time you want to run? Object of the class which you want to run. Name of the job, cron expression, and object of the job which you want to run. This is a system dot schedule. System dot schedule. If you want to schedule any operation, this is how we are going to define. I hope you are good with this. People are good with this. Clear, boss? System dot schedule. How you define a ScheduleApex? Class implement schedulable. If a class is implementing a schedulable, it has to define a method called execute. In the execute, what will be there? Logic, what you want to define. Then at what time the job will be going to run? Cron expression. Now, if you schedule a job at a particular time, do you think the job will run exactly at the same time? May or may not. So, how do you find the details about the job? Like when it is going to execute next? I will go with the cron trigger. How do I find out the status, success or failure? I will go with the async apex job. Any jobs which are scheduled in the Salesforce, they will be registered with the async apex. They will be registered with the async apex job. Okay. Let us go to the next one.
Hi Satish.
Yes.
When we say last working day, that is different for different organizations, right? So where we can define that working day pattern?
Based on your business hours. Your organization will have business hours. As per that, it will decide.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Okay. I hope everybody is good. So, there is one more way of scheduling the job. This is programmatically scheduling a job. Whatever I explained, system.schedule we have used. The system.schedule, what we defined, it is a programmatically scheduling a job. Now, if you want to schedule manually also, we can do that. What was that? Setup. There is a cleaning process. The administrator can clean the data whenever it want. So there is a cleaning process which is defined, which administrator want to define by himself. So define a ScheduleApex class. Go to setup, build, develop. What you are finding here? Apex classes. What we have? Choose the class. Define monthly or weekly. Monthly on first day of every month. Weekly on every Sunday. Now, we have the option. Let us see. I want to run the job on 10th and 15th. I want to run on 10th and 15th. Do you have that option? Programmatically, I was able to say run the job from 5th to 10th. Run the job from 5th to 10th. Programmatically, I have option to say run the job from 10th, 20th, 23rd. Here I don't have the choice. I'm giving weekly on every Sunday. Okay. Or else I'm saying on second Saturday, second Sunday I'm giving. Okay. But I'm not having a complete flexibility what I am getting in the programmable. Here the timing is also fixed. Out of this I have to choose any one. But one time schedules, okay. Fixed schedules can be helpful in this one. What was that? I want to say schedule it every Saturday. I can do it from here. Schedule it on second Saturday. I want to run it on last working day. This is not possible. I want to run it on next working day. No possible. So everything is not done with declarative, but there is a choice of scheduling the job using declarative. But flexibility of what we can do with the programmatical is not available. Time is I want to schedule at 10:05, not possible here. I want to schedule on 23rd of every month, not possible here. I want to run on 10th, 23rd and 28th of every month, not possible here. I want to run on next working day, not possible here. But for fixed schedule, basic options are given. So how do you schedule? Setup, build, setup, build, develop, Apex classes, we can define your job. I hope you are good with this. So in how many ways we can schedule the job? In how many ways we can schedule a job? Two ways. One is programmatical, another is manual. I hope you are good. What is the purpose of ScheduleApex? I want to delete the data every day in the evening 5 o'clock. All the leads which are created today should be deleted. Every day in the evening 5 o'clock, all the invoices which are closed should be deleted from Salesforce, and the invoices should be sent to third-party system. Every day in the evening, I need to load extra data from all the new opportunities created in the external system. I have to fetch and save it in the Salesforce. Every day evening, whatever the account updates I have done, these account updates I have to send to third party. Okay, whatever the changes we made on the accounts, that changes should be updated to external system every day at 5 o'clock. Whatever the changes, now let us say I have a government project, NGRE. Now they have centralized system. The centralized system for this, Gramin Upadhi Padhakam, okay, the centralized system is there. Now there is a central system. Now your TS government is updating the data to local system. TS government is maintaining local database. Now they will update everything into local database. From local database they will be updated to third party system. So every day evening at 5 o'clock, whatever these eligible candidates names are there, okay, or field executives data is there, works they submitted today, this data need to be submitted to centralized system. Every day at evening 5 o'clock, this update should be done. So what do you want? Every day at evening 5 o'clock, new work orders, new field executive submissions, new reviews or new enrollments, this data should be submitted to centralized system. Every day at 5 o'clock. How this happen? You want this job to run every day, every working day, you want this job to run at 5 o'clock. Every day at 5 o'clock, the job has to be submitted. So what you are doing? This work is going on every day. If you want some operation to run automatically at the back end at 5 o'clock, then what we do? ScheduleApex. Any job you want to run recursively at a particular time, we go for ScheduleApex. Are you getting my point? Are you getting my point? If you want any operation to be performed recursively at a particular scheduled time, then we go for ScheduleApex. Then we go for ScheduleApex. I hope you are good with this.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
Sir, there is a requirement like suppose we want all the data to go into one third-party system. Like, we want to save it somewhere, not in Salesforce. So is it possible to write a ScheduleApex for this?
That's what I explained just now. I told you it's
I
separate.
mean, archival process.
Pardon me?
Anything on the archiving process.
What do you mean by arguing process?
Archiving means, sir, we don't want, the like it should be stored in the object. It should stored somewhere else.
See, now funda is simple. The data which is there in the Salesforce, you want to transfer to some other system. In other system,
Yes.
whether they save it to table or list or setup, that's their headache. From my end, I have data which need to be sent to third-party system. What the third-party system people do is their headache. Whether they can store it in the table or they want to store it somewhere else or they want to put in a cache, it's their headache. My process, what I can do from Salesforce, I will capture the data which is already with me. I will send this data to the third-party people as a response. Now, what they do at their end is not my business. So, using a ScheduleApex, what I can do, that's what I told just now. Every day at evening 5 o'clock, the data in my organization should be sent to some centralized system. So, what I'm doing, fetching the data using a web service, and I'm sending the data to third-party system. Once I send to third-party system, what they do is their choice. I have nothing to do with that. My responsibility is only to, I am a Salesforce guy. My responsibility is only capture the data from Salesforce, send my data to third party. So what they do with my data is their headache. I have nothing to do with that. Did you get my point? Okay.
Got it.
Now, so if you want any operation to be scheduled, what we do? ScheduleApex. Okay. Now, how many ScheduleApex we can call within a transaction? How many ScheduleApex? We can call 100 ScheduleApex within a transaction. How many ScheduleApex? 100 ScheduleApex. Right. Next, can I call a future method in the ScheduleApex? Yes. Can I call a web service in the ScheduleApex? ScheduleApex doesn't support web service directly. So if you want to call a web service, define the web service in the future. Call that future method in a ScheduleApex. If you want to call a web service calls in the ScheduleApex, you cannot call it directly. ScheduleApex doesn't support synchronous web services. So if you want to call any web service, define the web service within the feature method, call that feature method within a ScheduleApex. So we can call a web service, yes, but not directly. Can I call a web service? Yes, but not directly. Can I call a feature method? Yes. How many scheduled jobs? 100 scheduled jobs. I hope you are good with this. The theme is clear for everyone? Clear for everyone? Okay. So let us get into next one of the important topic. There is a batch effects. Before we get into batch effects, we need to understand a concept called governing limits. Because the purpose of going for this batch effects is only business. Before we go for a batch effects, you should know what made you to go to batch effects. Salesforce people implementing multi-tenant architecture. Salesforce people implementing multi-tenant architecture. What do you mean by multi-tenant architecture? Every application running on the cloud should have same speed, same functionality. No particular organization should dominate. Because you have 30,000 license, I have only one license. You should not dominate the cloud. Whatever the security speed you are getting, the same security speed I have to get. Whatever the features you are getting, same features even I have to get. Even if I have one license, you have 30,000 license, both of us should have the same speed and security. No single organization should dominate the cloud occupancy. No single organization should dominate the cloud. To avoid this dominance of the cloud, people have given what? Multi-tenant architecture. Salesforce people are implementing a multi-tenant architecture. Because you have 30,000 users, obviously you have a huge amount of data. Obviously your requests will be more, obviously your updates will be more, because you have huge data. Most of the cloud if you occupy, the performance of the cloud if you occupy, my operations will run slow. So to avoid this, to avoid dominance of a particular client on the cloud, people have implemented a multi-tenant architecture. What was that called? Multi-tenant architecture. Now in this multi-tenant architecture, because the Salesforce want to implement this multi-tenant, because 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 the Salesforce want to because the Salesforce want to update, maintain the multi-tenant architecture, they want to they want to restrict the people by applying some limits. What are those limits called? What are those limits called? Governing limits. So to implement multi-tenant architecture, Salesforce has applied some limits which are called governing limits. Salesforce has applied some limits called governing limits. So every organization has to obey these limits. Why? To maintain multi-tenant. So some of the examples I'll give you. First, number of SQL queries is 100. What was that? Public void SQL 1. How many query I wrote? One SQL query. One SQL query. How many queries I wrote? Two queries I wrote. Within the method, know what I told? 52 SQL queries I wrote. Then total in this method, how many SQL queries are running? 50 plus in this 52. Total 1 or 2 SQL queries. When I say whenever we call SOQL2, how many SQL queries are running? 1 or 2 SQL queries are running. How many SQL queries? 1 or 2. Let me execute this. So what is the exception we got? Too many SQL queries, 1 or 1 exception. So within a transaction, maximum how many SQL queries you can write? 100 SQL queries. When you call this method, within this all the SQL queries together, maximum how many SQL queries? 100 SQL queries. Similarly, we have DML statements. All the DMLs together, we have maximum 150. There is a reason, never write a DML within a loop. Never write a DML within a loop. How many DMLs are out? 1 DML, 2 DML, 3 DML, 4 DML. So total how many DMLs? 4 plus 100, 1 or 4 DMLs. So 50 DMLs. Total how many DMLs we have? 154 DMLs. DML 1 is giving you 104. This is giving you 50. Total 154 DMLs. But all the DMLs within the transaction altogether, we can have only 150 DMLs. Number of DML shipments are only 150. So too many DML statements. All the DMLs together, maximum how many DMLs? 150 only. All together 150 only. I have public void. Now look at this. So how many DMLs are out? How many DML shipments? 1 DML only. Number of DML shipments are only 1. But how many records are made? 5,000 records. Number of DML shipments are only 1. How many DML? Only 1. But on how many records I am making? On 5,000 records I am making. Now overall, on how many records I am making a DML? The insert is performed on 5005. Update is performed on 5005. Total 10,010 records. On how many records I am making a DML? Number of DMLs are only 2. I wrote only 1 insert, 1 update. Number of DMLs are only 2. But the number of records on which I am performing a DML is 10,010. Now, within a transaction, maximum number of records on which I can perform a DML. Within a transaction, we can perform DML on So all the records on which I am performing a DML, all of them together, it cannot be more than 10,000. Right. Now look at this. I'm executing. It is a long running operation. This is what is called long running. I'm updating, performing a DML on 10,000 records. That's the reason it's taking more time. Now this operation is taking more time, right? So look at this. I call this method, but method is not performed, still taking time. Because it's a long running operation. That's why I told in the future, bulk DML operation. If you are performing a DML on a single row, it's a regular operation. If you put a group of records in the list, perform a DML on the list, it is a bulk DML operation. What is the error we received? 10,001. Are you clear? Like this, every functionality has a limitation. So what is that? Number of SQL queries, 100. Number of DMLs, 150. Number of DML records, 10,001. So let us see. Now look at this. These are the governing bits. Number of SQL queries, 100. Number of rows, records. How many records will be given by the SQL query? 50,000 records. How many SOSLs we can write? 20. How many DMLs we can write? 150. How many DML rows we get? 10,000. CPU time, 10,000 seconds. Heap size, 6 lakhs. Now call out, number of web service call, 100. Number of email invocation, messaging.send email. How many times you can call messaging.send email? 10. How many feature methods? 50. How many Qubel jobs? 50. How many push? This is a mobile push notification. You get alerts, right? Push notification. One message received, that notification. How many? At 10. So all these are what? Governing limits. These are the sum of the governing limits. Why the Salesforce is going for a governing limit? Boss, as the Salesforce is maintaining a multi-tenant architecture, to maintain that multi-tenant architecture, Salesforce is applying some limitations on every functionality, which is called governing limits. Now, what are they? 100 SQL queries within a transaction. Transaction means when you call a method, within that method, all of them together, 100. 150 DML, 50,000 records in a SQL query. When I say 50,000 records in a SQL query, if you have only one query, 50,000. Within the method, if you are writing 4 queries together, 50,000. Get this point. How many records you can give? 50,000 records, because there is only one. Suppose I have one more. Both of them together 50,000. Not each one 50,000. Not each one 50,000. Both of them together 50. Previously our example is only one query I wrote. That's why we told maximum limit is 50,000. But if you have multiple queries, all the queries together, it is 50,000. If there is only one query, then give 50,000. Multiple queries, all of them together is 50,000. I hope you're good. Okay. Then people ask, why do you write parent to child, child to parent? You can write separate queries. Why are you writing parent to child, child to parent? Because if I write a parent to child, it is considered as one query. If you take a parent to child or child to parent, all together it's one query. But if you are writing two separately, they are considered as two queries. Okay. One query on parent, one query on child, it's 2 query. If you straight away write parent child or child to parent, both of them together, it is 1 query. I hope you're good. Maximum number of records are 50,000. How many SOSLs we can call? 20. How many DML rows? Within the method, all the records together, 10,000 records on which I can make a DML. On how many records we can make a DML? 10,000. Number of web service calls? 50, okay, 100. Number of email invocations? 10. Number of feature methods? 50. Number of queuable jobs? 50. Number of scheduled jobs? 100. Number of batch jobs? 5. Number of batch jobs, this concept, okay, 5. So this is a governing limit. But because of this, I have a problem. What is my problem? I told, get me all the opportunities created in the last month, delete them. In the last month, 3 lakh opportunities are created. I want to delete. How do you delete? It says maximum 10,000 records on which you can make a DML. But my requirement is 3 lakh records are there. I told, get me all the leads which are created in the last week and convert them into account. I told there, get me all the accounts. There are 1,000 accounts. Get me all the accounts which belongs to Hyderabad. Get their corresponding opportunities. Update their status as closed one. Accounts are 10, okay, 1,000 only. But on this 1,000 accounts, each account has 4 to 5 opportunities. Now the number of opportunities associated with this 1,000 account are 60,000. On how many records we are making operation now? 60,000 records. But your governing limit says only 10,000. Then how will you implement? Now I have 1,000 accounts. Now on every account, every day on nightly basis, make a web service call to third party, get the latest data, update this account. How many accounts? Accounts are 100 only. Accounts are 1,000 only. But for every account, I have to make a web service call to third party, get the data and update. How many web service calls we can make? 100. But how many accounts are there? 1,000 accounts are there. What if you want to work beyond the governing limits? When you are working with a larger set of data, 100% there is a possibility of encountering governing limits. When you are working with a larger data, I want to work with the 2 lakh records. I want to work with 60,000 records. There is a possibility of encountering governing limits exception. Then how will you work with this? How will you work with this? Future method, it is a transaction. How many SQL? 100 only. How many DML? 150 only. How many records? 10,000 only. Then we have your queuable job. Queuable job is also what? How many SQL queries? In the queuable also, how many SQL queries? 100 only. How many DML? 150. How many records? 10,000. So I want to work with beyond those. Then when you are working with a larger set of data, there is a possibility of encountering a governing limits problem. To resolve this, people are going for a batch approach. What is the concept? What was this batch? I have 1,000 records. Now on every account, I want to make a web service call. Now can I make a web service call on 1,000 records at a day? No, why? Because we can only make 100 calls at a day. So what they are doing? They divided the 1,000 records into number of. They divide into number of jobs. Each job containing 100. So what happened? The 1,000 records are divided into 10 different batches. Now they are going to be executed separately. Now can I make 100 web service call on 100 records? I have a limit of 100. On 100 records, you can make a web service call. Yes, my limit is supported. So if you are running all the data, if you collect all the data, run it like a single operation, you are encountering a problem of governing limits. So what we are doing, getting all the data, breaking them into number of batches, running every batch separately. When you run every batch separately, what will happen? This batch will have 100 SQL queries, 150 DML, 100 web service calls, 10,000 records. This also will have hundreds because it's independent job. 100 SQL queries, 150 DML, 100 web service calls. Like that, every batch will get a separate set of governing limits. So what we are doing? Fetching the data, breaking them into number of batches, running this parallelly. After running all these, finally we perform the. After completing all this, we perform. So what is the concept of BatchApex? Tell me. Breaking the operation into number of child operations, running them independently, and finally synchronizing the entire function. This concept is called BatchApex. What is the BatchApex? Break the larger task into number of subtasks and run all of them independently. And everything will run independently. If everything is running independently, if this job fail, what will happen? If this fail, only that will fail. Because it has no connection with the previous or next. Every job is going to run independently. Break the operation into number of jobs, run them independently. When you run them independently, if any one of the job fail, only the job will fail, rest of the operations will continue. Are you clear? So what is the concept of BatchApex? Break the larger operation into number of batches, run them parallelly and perform the operation. What is the advantage you are going to get when you break them into number of batches, run them independently? Every independent batch will get a separate set of governing limits. If you run together, only one set of governing limits. If you break them and run them parallelly, they will get independent set of governing limits. This is how the issue will be resolved. So what is the functionality? Fetch the data, break them into number of batches, run them parallelly and perform the final operation. Now, how will you fetch the data? There are 3 steps involved. What is the first step? Fetch the data, break them into number of batches, so how this is fetched? Using a start method. We have a method called start that will fetch the data, break them into number of batches. In every batch, what happened? Logic we have to execute. Same logic will execute on everything. Same logic will execute in everything. So how do you execute the logic? We have a method called. In the execute, what we define? Logic, what you want to implement. Same execute method will run for everyone. After completing the execute, finally what? Finally, what was this? Finish. In the finish, final operation is given. Fetch the data, break them into number of batches, fetch the data, break them into number of batches, run them independently, finally close the operation with the finish method. Fetch, break them, finish. Fetch, break them, finish. Are you clear about this? People are good with this concept? People are good with this concept? This is implemented by a concept of BatchApex. So what is the purpose of BatchApex? It will fetch the data, break them into number of batches, run them independently, finally close them with the final operation. How do you fetch the data? By using start method. How do you execute the logic? Execute method. Okay, the post operation. After completing all the batches, the final operation is defined in finish. What are the methods we have? Start, execute, finish. Where are these 3 methods defined? These 3 methods are defined in a database.batchable. There is an interface called database.batchbook. Any class which is implementing this interface will have start, execute, finish. Start will fetch the data, execute will perform the logic, finish will perform post information. Okay. How many records you can fetch? 50 million records. Generally, when you write a SQL query, 50,000 records. But in the BatchApex, if I write a SQL query, in the start method, if I write a SQL query, it will give you 50 million records. So what is the scope of working? I can work up to 50 million records. It is useful when you are working with a larger set of data. I hope you are good. We'll see the execution in the next class.